Hello fellow nerdmaids and nerdmaids-to-be, my name is Faith, and it's that time again. I am reviewing a FinFolk tale! I'm super excited to share my thoughts on the new in-house line of FinFolk printed fabric tales. So let's just start with a bit of backstory for those that don't know. You can watch all my other FinFolk videos that I've done right here, including the unboxing and first swim in this beautiful mermaid tale. So I got my first tale from them in the summer of 2019 and reviewed it in early 2020. When I was at Mermagicon, I saw that they were starting their new printed line of tales. They were doing a bit of R&D with fabrics and prints and everything, and I'm super pleased with what they came up with. Their Facebook group, the Pod Squad, had a design contest, and they chose 4 Pod Squad winners for tale designs that were released for their debut line. So those took a little while to come. As people were starting to get these batch of tales, they came out with their fall line, and it was mostly reprints of their spooky line of tales, which is pretty cool, and a couple of other originals. And then shortly after, it's like we got punched in the face with FinFolk tales. For the Black Friday release, which is always the big sale day, everyone goes nuts. They had the new Carriel line, which is beautiful, had new scales, new flukes, new fins, gorgeous, so many that looked amazing, but I think my favorite was the shiny black Nebula Aurora Borealis styled one, because obviously, Space Mermaid.
Can you tell that I decided on a brand theme and stuck with it ever since 2014?
And then their latest release is the oh so pretty Mermaid Carriel Pastel Rainbow. Mwah. That's the fabric tale line. That's what FinFolk has come out with. To really see the progression and improvement is just amazing. They have been re-releasing tales of the month of old tales. The classic Cleo they re-released, and I had to sit on my hands to stop myself from buying it because I have a perfectly good old print of the classic Cleo, but that one had a dorsal fin and cute little hip fins and so if anyone's selling one, please hit me up. It's a problem, but we're gonna move on. We're gonna love this one. We're gonna love this one to death, which I kind of have. And now let's get into the review. For full disclosure, of course, I received this tale for free to review and give my honest thoughts and opinions on it. Sorry for the delay in getting this out. COVID has made getting to the pool and testing things out a lot trickier, but I'm glad to say I finally have all my thoughts sorted out and organized. Without further ado, I will be reviewing it on cosmetics, comfort, durability, customer service, and performance, so here we go. So for cosmetics, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. The designer I don't have off the top of my head, but they did a fabulous job of this tale, from the spots to the stripes to the color palette they chose. You saw me freak out about it in my unboxing. Gosh, I'm just so in love. I can't even think of things to say. I just keep looking at it. I really love so many things about the print and design of this tale. The scales might not join, but the stripes generally do along the side, and I think that's really cool and helps to add to the illusion of this being one piece. The zipper, I'm really happy with how well it's hidden. This one is a dark blue color, and it took me a while to find it. Now the print is of a much higher quality than the other ones, and it really adds to the realism factor. My last tale from them, even compared to other ones in their lines, I was like, it doesn't have the right look, but this does have the right look. The one thing I feel got a little bit lost is almost some of the dimension on the fluke. It's hard to describe, but I feel like the fluke doesn't look as 3D as the scales do, but that's also just because the scales are a little more obvious to look at. This whole sort of ethereal space theme is right up my alley, and it actually makes me want to watch Avatar with less of the internal cringe.
This means something to me now.
If you have an option to get this tale and you're feeling kind of about the blue, I would say don't worry about it. This whole gradient I think really helps it stand out in the water, as well as all the spots and stripes and different colors on the fluke. These tales will always be a hit no matter where you go. It's just so massive, you can't help but look at this. In terms of some of the more picky mermaid illusion stuff, I don't really like how the scales just sort of end. I liked the waistband on this tale more, the way that the scales ended, as opposed to this where they're just sort of cut off. When we're talking about waistbands, this one is obviously a lot prettier than the older style. It doesn't wrinkle, and it doesn't quite give me as severe of a tummy line. It's very flattering that way, and also these stripes really, they just accentuate the body in the right way. It's gorgeous. Now the last thing I like more about this compared to the neoprene ones is that there's not as many weird leg suction wrinkles. I would find that a lot of times with my neoprene tail, it would really just cling to me, whereas this lets the water flow through. It doesn't suction to my body. This is a 84% polyester and 16% spandex blend. You can still see your heels a little bit depending on the monofin you wear, so that's a little bit unfortunate in terms of realism, depending on where you situate the vinyl and your foot pockets. It does happen, so you will see a bit of the ankle bulge, but it's not crazy dramatic. I find I don't really notice it unless I'm looking for it. These tails are great for photo shoots as they're really lightweight, but still have that realistic look like a silicone tail would. The one thing I don't like about this for photo shoots is that the fluke is pretty hard to maneuver around on land with, and then as well, when you're trying to get that perfect fluke up shot, you really have to time things well and just basically forget about it if it's wet. If you want that perfect pose, you just have to have a good photographer and timer and be prepared to hurt your calves. Now for comfort, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. This stretch is super nice and comfy, and this makes this tail infinitely easier to put on. Now the fluke does have some weight to it, not a ton, but still some, so I will get cramps occasionally. The foot comfort, of course, is dependent on what fin you choose to put in this tail, which I will get into later, but I personally wear the Finish Shooter, which on a good day will be fine, but sometimes it'll give me blisters. If you're smart, you can wear socks, or if you're me, you can just... I love things that cause me pain. And I like the vinyl. It's not uncomfortable and it doesn't rub into my feet at all. I find that this version of the tail is less of a pain in the butt factor than this one, but I still severely dislike trying to put the vinyl in the tail, take it out of the tail, clean it, store it, but the Velcro straps that they've included in this tail is so much better. Oh, I love it so much more. It makes the assembly of the tail so much easier. Now for durability, I'm going to give this particular tail a 7 out of 10. The first thing I've noticed is that this tail does pill and fuzz. I don't have a mertailer, but I have noticed that this is something that's fairly common in those tails as well. This is a light tail, so it's not quite as noticeable, but it's in most of the usual spots, sort of at the bottom of the tail, at the tips, at the end of the fluke, right along the edge. That will get a lot of pilling and rubbing. I don't know if that's from moving the tail around, putting things in, but I have noticed it. I have beaten up this tail quite a bit doing all my testing. It's a bit unfortunate, especially compared to this tail and my classic Clio, which aside from some pop seams have been perfect condition basically. It's a bit of an exchange, I guess, to get the softer, scratchier fabric. It does damage a little easier, I've found. It's a sad thing, which happens, but that's also part of the reason why I don't recommend these tails for beginners, because their flukes are so big and so awkward to maneuver, and you're really going to beat it up and scuff it up, especially if you're on a pool with a rough bottom surface or rocks and things like that. It does make me a little sad that she's not perfectly new, but also a beat up tail is a tail that's loved. When I review my tails, I don't do anything to fix them, which you will see later, so I can really show you guys what has accumulated after some normal to heavy use of a mermaid tail, but I will be doing some repairs on this tail. After many tests and swims, I've got probably like 3 or 4 holes in it at least on the fluke, and it hurts. And it's all in high stress areas where I am taking the vinyl in and out. I'm putting in different monofins, it's stretching, it's pulling, it's kind of bleh. So this is because they used a straight stitch on the fluke instead of a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch. I don't know, Mermaid seamstress said it to me, but she's an ambassador for them and said that they have since fixed this issue, and I haven't heard of it happening in any of their newer tails as far as I know, so that's good.
Yeah, stretch stitch.
Speaking of stretching, I think that the fabric has stretched out a little bit. I am noticing a bit of space, and where I put the vinyl in the fluke, I think that it has stretched just a tiny bit. So that's something to keep in mind, being mindful of how you are storing your tails. I personally store my tails without the vinyl in them because I like to hang them up, which does also contribute to stretching, but it's fine. But on the body of the tail itself, I haven't noticed anything, so I think it's mostly just the fluke. If I was to rate the body of the tail, I would say, hey, 10 out of 10. Rating the fluke of this tail like a 5 out of 10, so I'm averaging it at like 7. If you guys have one of the newer tails, let me know how the durability is, but your main issue to look out for is pilling and rubbing on the tails. I do put a lot of extra stress on my tails compared to the average Merd trying to do the most ridiculous things I can possibly do, so keep that in mind as well. One more thing I did notice is there is a bit of some strain around the zipper. I have noticed The seam is starting to pop a little bit there, not as badly as on my other tail, but that is something you want to be careful with. Do not reef on the zipper. Close it slowly and carefully. These tails, they're not indestructible. And one more thing to note is that even though there's Velcro inside this tail, it is double-sided Velcro, so when you're doing it up, you put the soft side of the Velcro outwards, so the Velcro will not hurt your tail as compared to the screws that were in the older style, which would sometimes wear holes through the fluke of the tail, so that's an improvement. Alright, so for customer service, I'll be giving it an 8 out of 10, cause, you know, this whole summer release thing isn't quite working for me. By this point, we should all understand that these tails are not ready to ship. They take time, and they usually deliver within their estimated time frames, but it just hurts a little bit inside, considering how short my mermaid season is up here. My outside shots were depressing and rainy, but what's even more annoying is that the spooky style release of tails, which was released around Halloween, when everyone is in a spooky mood, well, they're not coming until like January, February. It doesn't really keep the same spooky mood, you know? So I just feel like the release schedule could be remodified, tightened up a little bit, because people want to create content, they want to do photo shoots, they want to do this sort of thing, but not having your tail for the actual season doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. That's just something I feel like could be improved. Anyways, we're moving on from that little rant. But in terms of my experience with them, I got the full package and I really liked the new things like the care sheet, and the box was smaller. It was really easy to track and it came to me fairly quickly. Sizing for me wasn't an issue. Speaking from a point of privilege, I fluctuate anywhere from 115 to 120 pounds. I am 5 feet tall, wear like a size 2 to 4 in pants. I don't know, my waist size, I can't remember. I think my waist size is like 27, 28. And I wear an extra small in this tail and as well as in their old line. This feels so much easier to get on, and I don't feel like I'm going to pop seams, which I put it on, which is always great for the self-esteem. And that means that the sizing has expanded along with it. Based on what I know, overall the sizing since this release has been pretty consistent, but the sizing charts are there for a reason, and I implore you that if you are looking to splash your cash on something like this, go do the moderately uncomfortable task of measuring yourself. And since these tails are stretchy, if you are in between sizes, of course, size down. Now for performance, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, which is a point higher than last time thanks to an upgrade in vinyl assembly and drainage. Now don't be fooled, the dry gum, it's still there. It's honestly about the same as their old ones. I haven't noticed a humongous difference, but I think that these ones are a tad easier to swim in. It does not go super noom, but I am able to do quite a few tricks and things in it. There's still a lot that goes into swimming proficiently in one of these, and while the softer, stretchier fabric definitely makes it a little more beginner friendly, I still wouldn't recommend it for a first time tail. If it's your first time in a tail and you don't have a lot of swimming experience, these would not be the first purchase I would recommend, especially due to the initial investment cost and the big learning curve. Basically just due to the sheer hecking size of this fluke. This is not a training wheels fluke. This is a two-wheeler. When I say this fluke is big, it is 34 inches long and 34 inches wide. Now, but the great thing about the vinyl filling up the big size flukes is that it actually stops quite a bit of drag. I have worn this tail naked without vinyl and it works, but not nearly as well as it does with vinyl, but better than when I tried it with the neoprene ones. Another good point of reference for how easy a tail is to use is how easy is it to do a fluke splash, where you do a head-first surface dive and lift your tail out of the water. These ones I'm able to do it, but I'm also a very strong swimmer. I've been doing this for 7 years, but I still cannot do it all the time and not very dramatically. And on land, like I mentioned before, sticking the fluke straight up in an H2O style is not super possible due to the size and floppiness of the fluke. In terms of the fabric, while neoprene was a little bit better in terms of keeping you warmer and damaging less, I overall still will prefer this scuba knit fabric that they've used. It's much easier to fold up and I don't need to fiddle with all the drainage holes like I did in the other ones. And now for the much anticipated questions about monofin compatibility. Over the course of several months, of course, I've been doing lots of compatibility tests with different monofins, different vinyl, and comparing it to my other tails, and I just love to make myself suffer. So here are the official FinFolk recommended monofins and my rankings of them. Coming in at number 4 is the Finis foil. It's just my least favorite. I don't know, I don't love the foil. I find that it just doesn't give quite enough propulsion to make this tail super usable, but what I do like about it is that it is very cheap and very comfortable. An okay option, but still not my favorite. Coming in at number 3 is the Finis Wave. Now honestly, I might not be a very big fan of this monofin to begin with, but I did find that I was able to swim in this tail with that monofin with ease and a little bit of speed. I'm still not a super big fan of all the fiddly straps in the Finis Wave, but it's a really accessible, easy to find monofin. Number 2, the Linden! It is way comfier than the Finis Wave, and the foot straps are far easier to use. I still don't like finagling foot straps inside this tail. It's still not my favorite, but we can deal with it. But the Linden is very stiff, it's very noomy, it's very user-friendly, it's fairly budget-friendly as well. The one thing I do not like about using the Linden though is that it's got those rubber strips along the side, which is great because it will damage things less, but it's so frustrating putting it inside this tail. Oh my gosh. I could never quite get it to situate right and centered and maybe it's just that the width is like as tight as it will go on this particular fluke shape. I tried to show it putting it inside vinyl and it worked fine, but that's because I didn't have to deal with the fabric in it and anyways, if you find that to be an issue for yourself, please let me know because I'm feeling super incompetent trying to use the Linden inside this tail. It does go noom, it fills out the fluke nicely, but it's still not my complete favorite. But moving into the number 1 spot is the Finis Shooter. This is the number 1 recommended monofin, I believe that FinFolk says, and myself, please listen to me. It's super easy to slot in, I don't need to finagle with foot straps. The only thing it has given me pain with is blisters, but other than that, it's great if you wear socks. That will be avoidable if you're smart. This fin is really the one that gives me the most power inside of this tail, so while it is a lot more expensive than some of the other ones, I'd say it's totally worth the investment. And look, I even swam with the shooter with just the vinyl. And look, now you can see what it looks like with just the vinyl. Pretty cool. And now for some non-recommended monofins. The Hydra! I tried that one on recommendation of Mermaid seamstress, and I think it worked great. It's great if you have a larger feet and need something to fit inside the tail. Still, you have to deal with foot straps, but it does fill out the fluke pretty nicely, so you can get a little bit better of that straight up fluke look. I tried the Mahina again because I have not learned the error of my ways, and that was when I got my first hole in this tail, which was only like my 3rd or 4th swim in the tail. The Mahina works, but it's not amazing, so I did try it without the vinyl, and it was okay, but not amazing, so I don't recommend it. I also tried again the Luna inside the FinFolk. It might be because I didn't secure it very well or just that I don't like the Luna that much, but it didn't feel like I was going anywhere. You can look at the footage and it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like maybe I just haven't swam in a tail much, but it was so bad. What I also like about this tail, another improvement, is that it has a larger zipper. The zipper goes all the way up basically to like my knee area, and so it's so much easier to slot in larger monofins like the Hydra or the Finis Wave or the Linden. Taking off the tail is pretty easy depending on the monofin you're wearing, of course. Again, not super recommended for beginners because they do take a couple of steps to take it off. I like the shooter because I can quick release method in it. If you're in a non-emergency situation, I would just recommend better safe than sorry, staying close to the edge of the pool or where you can touch. The tails are big and awkward to maneuver, so if you take the tail off in the middle of the water, you're gonna have to drag it back, which is uncomfortable anyways. In regards to cleaning, these tails aren't that much harder to take care of compared to a regular fabric tail. I just rinse it out in fresh water, use a bit of a swimsuit cleaner, but I hate taking care of the vinyl. I mean, I could just not be a wuss and dry it off immediately and store it, but at the end of the swim, I'm not ready to do that. Now for the vinyl, it is a necessary evil, much like pants. Now the vinyl is different from their last line of tails, and I've actually noticed quite a bit of difference. Like immediately from when I unboxed it, I was like, oh, this is different. It seems like this vinyl is a bit softer than the other ones. And Hannah confirmed it. It's a different form of vinyl. It's the same thickness, 2.5 millimeters. It's a lot more flexible, a lot floppier, meaning that it can go back to the shape it was after it's been folded and stored for a while. A lot easier than the older stuff. And I've talked about it a lot. The vinyl Velcro straps, I love it. It's a major improvement. So much easier. Gives me a lot more versatility in terms of how to put in different monofins. Unfortunately, I lost like all of mine. I left them at the side of the pool when I was doing tests and had to leave the swim. But I did find a dupe on Amazon, some double-sided Velcro. I'll put the link in the description if anyone's interested. I've really noticed no difference in swimming with this as compared to the other stuff. And of course, I'm going to reveal the name of this tail. Might not be a surprise, I'm naming this tail Neytiri, based off of the character from Avatar. Rewatched Avatar and was like, okay, yes, I feel like the name fits the tail and the aesthetic, obviously. So thank you to everyone that suggested the name Neytiri. That is what I have named this beautiful girl. So my total score for this tail is 42 out of 50. That's an 84%. That's an A. I'd say that's an accurate grade for this tail. The only thing I'm really not super impressed with is the changes in durability, but everything else compared to their other line is an upgrade based on something that was already pretty good to begin with. Again, I would recommend this as a second or third tail for people, as it does take a lot more experience and effort to use effectively, but overall I really like it. It always turns ahead when I bring it to a pool. It is gorgeous, I love the design, and all the improvements have really made it less of a chore to use. FinFolk has really stepped up their game in the last little while with their new line, and I am so excited to see what else comes out from them. There's numerous tails that they've put out this year that I'm like, I'd like that one too. So thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Comment below, have you gotten one of these tails? Do you want to? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new and improved FinFolk tails. Subscribe if you haven't already to see more videos like this and other things I get up to. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye! And the classic Clio, which I do have. Oh shoot, it's drying upstairs.